Hello my dear sewing friends, it's Alisa here, and this week once again we are on the mission to use up our fabric scraps and to make something beautiful from them. And today it's all about making scrappy t-shirts. And you know me, for me, two things when I work with fabric scraps. Number one, it has to be well made, and number two, it has to look intentional, modern, fun, and creative. Now here I have quite a lot of fabric scraps. Most of them are from the projects that you've seen on the channel before, so I think it's always fun to see what was the original creation from that fabric and what else we made from whatever was left. Usually when I work on projects like that, I don't necessarily have a very concrete thought right away. It's rather an abstract idea that just sort of like floats out there, but it does get stronger once I start working with the fabrics and sort of putting them together and seeing what fabric scraps I have. So right now, just by looking what's in front of me, I think that we can do 2, 3, maybe 4. Maybe 4 is pushing it a little bit, but 3 scrappy t-shirts that would be fun, I think that's definitely achievable. Okay, so you know how I always say start with what speaks to you and what's the most obvious project that you can see that sort of like jumps right at you. So I think this is it. So the inspiration behind this first scrappy design came to me from one of those really large digital print t-shirts, you know, the ones that have this large print in a rectangle right in the front, and usually it features high contrast between the print and the rest of the t-shirt. Sometimes it might have some words on it, but I really love the look of it, and when I saw this as an idea, I thought, let me take that and translate that into what I'm working here with. And I don't even know if it's actually going to look good or not, but you know, we won't know until we try, right? So that's the attitude, that's the mindset. And here I have a piece of cotton lycra. Both of these are knits. This one I used to make a t-shirt and a pair of jogger pants quite some time ago, I think last year, maybe 2 years ago. And this is also a piece of knit. This is 100% cotton jersey. Oh, actually quite a nice size of remnant over here. And I used it to make my most recent peasant top on the channel. I'm starting by tracing the base of my pattern, and for me that's this t-shirt, but you can of course choose whatever fits you the best. And I find that it is easier to work on projects like that when I have a full pattern piece in front of me. So what I have to do now is sort of slice it apart, and by doing so I am creating that frame for the print in the middle of the t-shirt. This process definitely does take a little while just because you have to figure out where would be the perfect placement. But once that is done, all I have to do is just cut it out and put it together, really. And if you're watching for the first time, I dragged my patterns without seam allowances, so that's why you see me add them as I cut. And also don't forget, all of those slice lines in the middle of the pattern, you will need to add your seam allowances to them as well. Now the assembly starts by attaching the side panels first and then attaching the top and the bottom to create that full front pattern piece. And here I want to mention that I know that not everybody presses their knit garments as they sew, and I certainly do that every time either. It just kind of really depends on what is the knit that I'm working with and what is the garment. But in this particular case, I would really suggest that you do that if your fabric allows it, because we're working with really straight, crisp lines with very pronounced geometric shapes, and therefore pressing every seam before the next one really helps to achieve that super nice result. After the front pattern piece is assembled, all we have to do is just put it all together like you would with any other t-shirt, really. And for finishing necklines and finishing hems and all that stuff, I have all detailed tutorials on my channel, so we are all set on that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the final result. loved how the first t-shirt turned out, and you know, when I get excited, so I wanted to play around with this idea a little bit more. The white is white t-shirting, just white cotton knit, and I always have a little bit of that on hand just because I use it for so many miscellaneous things, so I had a little bit and I thought it will be perfect. And then in the middle we have rayon, and I was a little bit skeptical about putting these two together just because this knit is a little bit droopier than cotton knit, but you know what, because it has sort of like medium weight quality, it actually holds up really well, and I'm happy with this one. I'm happy with this first one. So for me, this definitely is scrappy happy and not scrappy crappy, you know. And you know me, I always try to encourage people to create, to make things that speak to you, that are true to you, that feel right to you. So this definitely feels right to me. With this yellow one, I might add some sort of vinyl phrase on top of it, maybe like summer vibes or find joy or be creative or something like this, but I need to think about it just a tad more. And here, as always, I also want to encourage you to look beyond what you see. So obviously I had enough of this yellow knit and this white knit in order to create the front and the back. But what if you actually color block all of these little panels? What if you color block the panels and the sleeve? What if you invert and make the panels, the side panels, the top and the bottom out of the print, but the middle you make out of solid color and then put some sort of phrase on it, or perhaps some sort of embroidery? So possibilities are endless. Have fun. Needless to say, I'm really happy with how both of these t-shirts turned out, so let's move on to the next project. And here I really wanted to play with these stripes and these spots, but that was in my head. When I actually went to put these two fabrics together, I was like, oh no. The tone of white underneath the print definitely doesn't match and just looks really odd. So I thought, okay, no worries, I have another idea in mind. This striped knit is definitely not enough for much of anything really, but if I do this strategically, I can squeeze out half of the front pattern piece and half of the back pattern piece as well. So I thought about creating this color block design that is sort of like a wave with a like really beautiful curved line. So let me show you what I mean. Just like in the previous project, I'm starting here with a pattern base and one full front pattern piece, but I will also need a back pattern piece as well because I'm going to be color blocking both. And the pattern here is actually exactly the same. And the first thing that I'm doing is I'm evening out the side seams, and I'm doing that because I'm working with geometric print, and therefore working with geometric print on the curve is a lot more difficult in matching than on a straight line. So that's the reason I'm going to sort of equal out the side seam. And then of course I have to separate the bodice with that curved line for my color block design. The bottom part is going to be that striped knit, but the top part is actually going to be a t-shirt that I'm going to upcycle. So this t-shirt has company logos on it, so I can't really show that on camera, so you have to believe me. And the knit, the fabric itself, is actually still really good. I just haven't been wearing it because of the logos. So I thought, let me just cut it apart and use for this project. It's a win-win for everybody. But here, in order to create that color block design and to have enough fabric, I have to take into account how much of each of the fabric I actually have. And sometimes when I do these color blocking designs from fabric scraps, that might be a little bit challenging because you only have this much fabric, but then that might equal to a really awkward placement on your body. So here you have to also take into account where that line is gonna go through. After all of that is finalized, of course, it's time to cut out the pattern pieces. And as you can see, here I'm doing that flat, meaning that I'm not cutting on the fold because my pattern pieces aren't symmetrical if you fold them down to center front or center back. And also, while I'm doing that, I wanted to mention that, yes, I do cut all of my pattern pieces on grain. It's one of the questions that I get asked a lot, especially underneath my fabric scrap videos, because when you're working with fabric scraps, sometimes it might be a little bit difficult to identify where is the grain line. But but most of the time, yes, I try to stick to the grain line of the fabric. And I do dive into that topic a little bit deeper in one of the tips videos about how to work with fabric scraps. So if you're interested, I'll leave that video for you guys in the description underneath this one. After I finished the front pattern piece and the back pattern piece, I wanted to put them side by side to make sure that that transition from that wave is really nice and smooth, and it was. So I was really happy with that. And from here, all I have to do is just put it together like any other t-shirt. So once that is done, let's take a look at the final result. So what do you say? For me, it's definitely the scrappy, happy kind. I am not 100% approving of how I arranged the sleeve over here. I should have problem solved this a little bit more, but other than that, it's definitely a winner. Plus, you can pair it up with an upcycle of an old t-shirt as well. And here's an extra idea of how you can use curved lines in order to color block your scrappy makes. You see this lemon t-shirt where one shoulder and one sleeve is made with white knit, and that definitely creates not only the contrast but also a bright pop of color. Alright, moving on to the next project, and this next color blocking scrappy idea is going to be probably the most obvious out of all of these because we're going to be playing with stripes. And here I want to combine these three fabrics together, and I know that right now perhaps it doesn't look like they're gonna go well, but that's the beauty of working with fabric scraps. Sometimes it doesn't go well in your head, but once you put them together, there's something unique about that combination, and again, we won't know until we try, so let's do it. This time I'm starting with half of the front and half of the back pattern pieces, and the task that I have at hand is pretty straightforward. I have to divide my pattern into stripes, and I think I'm actually gonna go for 3 blocks or 3 stripes, one for each color. And now, once that is done, I have to figure out how am I going to arrange them, and I have to remember that I also have the sleeves to cut as well. Now, this always is one of those make it or break it moments, but once you have settled on the idea how this is all gonna go together, we can start cutting and sewing. As you can see, my front pattern piece and my back pattern pieces were done, and I did try it on before sewing the side seams, and guess what? I realized that the proportions of the pink stripe were off, so I made a decision to shorten it. So here you see I'm chopping it off, and now I'm going to be sewing it all back together. Now after that was adjusted, you know the drill. Finish it up like a regular t-shirt, and now let's take a look at the result. Definitely a scrappy happy for me. And I realize it might be not everybody's cup of tea, but of course you can combine stripes and colors in all sorts of different ways. Here's just another example how you can do that in a hoodie, and it doesn't have to be 3 stripes or 4 stripes. It can be 2 stripes. It can be whatever your heart desires. Just have fun with it. And here in this one, I realize that on camera it might not seem obvious, but this spotty print actually has a slightly blush background, so it actually goes really well with this pink and then with this white. So in real life, it actually goes well together. So I'm not sure how you can see that on camera, but again, I really like it. And you know, sometimes all we need is just this tiniest little push, this tiniest little piece of encouragement to get us started. And I'm here to tell you that you can totally do it. Sometimes starting small definitely works the best. So here is a video about 6 projects that you can make from your fabric scraps, which will definitely give you that courage to combine fabrics together, to sort of combine prints and see it in a bigger picture, and then you can move on to clothes. So definitely click right over here, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!